Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today's guest is Kelly Falardeau. She is a burn survivor since the age of 2. On 75% of her body, she found a way to go from near death to success, from the ugly Scarface girl to the TEDx stage twice, Fierce Woman of the Year, 7 times international best-selling author, recipient of the Queen Elizabeth Diamond Jubilee Medal and YWCA Woman of Distinction. A documentary about her life story called Still Beautiful launched on TV, plus Goalcast launched a video that has over 10 million views. And she is also a single parent of 3 kids. Welcome, Kelly. It is a pleasure to have you.
Oh, thank you to have me. I'm so excited that you're doing something for single parents because, it's so important for single parents. That's awesome.
Yeah, so please share your story with us. How did you become a single parent?
Sure. Well, when I was 2 years old, I got burnt to, 75% of my body. And so I never ever thought I'd ever, have a good life or get married or have kids or anything. But I did. And what happened was we were married for about 24 years. And I just wasn't feeling in love with him anymore. And, there were some things that happened in the marriage that I don't always like to share in a Zoom call, but, it was a toxic marriage. And, it got to the point where I didn't even want to go home from work at night. And I went and I sat in a parking lot and I would just cry my eyes out. And I called one of my friends and I said, why am I doing this? Like, what is going on here? And she said, Cal, I think you're sabotaging your marriage so that you can get out of it. Because I think you want to get out of your marriage, but you're just not sure how to do it. And it was really interesting for me because I remember going home or being at work one day and my boss said to me, I can't wait to go home to my husband. And I was like, what is that? Because I don't want to go home to my husband. I want to go home to my kids, but I don't want to go home to my husband because I didn't know what he was going to be like when I got home. So I hated going home. And that was a big clue to me that there was something wrong with my marriage. And I'll never forget one day I was traveling because I was started to be a speaker. And I went into the airport bathroom and, I was, what was I doing? I turned around and I don't know, I did something like this to my hand and my wedding ring fell off and went right into the toilet. And I was like staring at it. And it was like, yeah, I know. My marriage is really in the toilet. I still got the ring. But it was just a real clue to me that the universe was pointing me in that direction, that it's okay to be a single mom, right? So yeah, that was the start of my thoughts of, is this what I want to do or not?
Oh, wow. And the universe is talking to you. That's amazing. What was it like being a single? And how old were your kids already? I know you said you were married for 24 years. So the kids were pretty old already, or what were the ages?
No, actually, I didn't have my kids until I was 32, and I had my daughter at 32. Then I lost a baby a couple years later, and then I had a set of twin boys at 37. And so I was 44 at the time, and I'll never forget. It was our anniversary, and I was in bed. We'd gone to bed and everything, and I could hear him snoring, and I thought, okay, he's asleep now. So I went in the bathroom and I just started bawling my eyes out. And I remember saying to myself, or hearing that little voice say to me, you've done 24 years like this and you're only 44. Can you do another 24 years? And I said, no way, help me. And I think that again was also my wake up call that I didn't want to be married anymore. I just, I see so many people that are just so happy in their marriage. And I thought, you know what, I'm only 44. And some people might think that's really old, but I thought, is this the way I'm going to live the rest of my life, where I'm miserable and I'm not happy? And, it just wasn't right. And I remember asking him for a divorce. Like, we had a big argument, and he said, "Are you thinking we should separate?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." And he said, "Well, I'll only let you leave the marriage if you give me the house and the kids." And I was like, oh my gosh. And I thought, like, that is so hard, right? Like, a mom is not supposed to leave their kids. And I didn't want the house because I couldn't afford it. And I just said, okay. And I remember it was Christmas time, and my aunt said to me, "Kelly, what's going on?" She knew something was going on. And I don't know how she knew because we hadn't chatted for a very long time. And she goes, "Cal, I know there's something going on. If you need help, you have a place to live." And I was thinking, oh my goodness, the universe is like pointing me in that direction of leaving my husband to, finally get out on my own. And so sure enough, one day I had done something I should never have done. And I ended up calling my aunt the very next day and said to her, "Okay, can I come live with you?" And she said, "Absolutely. Come on over." I packed up my stuff and I went to go be with my aunt and lived with my aunt. And we only lived 10 minutes away from my former husband's house. And so every day for 2 years, I would go to the house at 5:30 in the morning when he would go to work. And then I would be there till 8 or 9 at night every day for 2 years. I did that. So I still saw my kids every day. And every second day they would come home with me and spend the night with me and my aunt and uncle. So yeah, it was quite challenging for sure because, I didn't want to leave my kids, but I knew I needed to be happy. And my kids were 8 and 12 at the time. And, the hardest thing about it was, we're taught that if we get a divorce, we're going to make our kids miserable and we're going to ruin their lives. And I thought, well, how could I be so selfish? Right? How could I be so selfish to leave my marriage and make my kids miserable? But in actuality, it worked out better because, he actually found a woman that, he married and treated him way better than I ever could. And now I'm in a relationship with a man that takes care of me and supports me and loves me in ways that my ex-husband couldn't. And so it was wonderful, right? I think, and I remember one time asking him, maybe we should try this again. And like, let's go on a date. And he said, "No, Cal, I'm not the right man for you." He said, "You had the courage to do what we needed to do. You had the courage to end the marriage where I didn't have that courage." So yeah, it's been quite a learning process.
Wow. Wow. But you had the courage to leave and to do that what you needed for yourself, and it's so important because oftentimes we put ourselves on the back burner for the sake of the kids. We stay in marriages that don't work. We sacrifice ourselves, and for what reason? Then kids learn that this is how it's supposed to be in the marriage. You're supposed to suffer. You're supposed to be quiet and patient and kind, and we're teaching them the wrong thing.
And marriage is forever,
Yeah.
right? We say those vows for better, for worse, for sickness and health, and for richer or poor. And we say those vows expecting that it's going to be forever. And so then we have that tremendous burden and guilt that we want to get out and be happy, and we just don't want to make it work anymore, or we can't make it work, or things happen that we just can't make it work. And so there's a lot of guilt and shame and blame in ending a marriage.
Yeah. What kind of advice can you share with single parents who are just stepping onto that journey of single parenting?
So I think some of the advice that I would give them is like, have a good friend that you can talk to that can help you through it, that has maybe been through it. The other thing is don't take everything personally. Like there's a lot of times we just get so caught up in taking everything personally, and we sweat the small stuff and we make mountains out of molehills. And in the end, does it really matter? Right? I think one of the issues that I faced was that my ex-husband was dating a woman that was my kids, or was teaching in my kids' school. And so she got to see my kids every day and I didn't. And so I was really, really, really upset. And that was a huge mountain for me, because it was like, that's not fair that when we did the divorce, we changed the custody arrangement. So it was 1 week on, 1 week off. And she got to see my kids every day and I didn't. And I was like, I'm the mom. I should be able to see my kids every day. But I guess what I had to realize that she wasn't trying to take my kids away from me. I was still their mom and always would be their mom. But I really had a hard time with that. And even to this day, when I think about it, it can still get me, really upset about it that she got to see my kids every day and I didn't. But again, it's all about, ultimately, I'm still the kid's mom. And she didn't want to take that away from me. It was just because, it just happened that she worked at the school. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So true. What do you think is the most important trait to instill in a child?
What is the most important what, sorry?
Trait, quality of character.
Quality in a child?
Trait, yes.
I think one of the most important qualities in a child is perseverance. And because, as a child, they have all these things that they have to overcome. And it's all about, how do you keep moving forward? How do you overcome those challenges? And, me being burnt as a 2-year-old, I mean, I was teased and bullied and called names. I was shunned, all of that stuff. And so it was like, how do you get through that? Like, how do you persevere through it? And I'll never forget, one day, my son was, I think he was about 15, and he was violated by a girl. Okay. So it was a whole situation, and something had happened. She lied about it. And then my son was very suicidal and he wanted to kill himself. And I was devastated, mama bear, like, right? But one day we had a talk about it. And he says to me, Mom, I didn't deserve this. Why did it happen to me? And I said, you're right. You didn't deserve it. But did I deserve to get burnt as a 2-year-old? And he said, no. And I said, okay, and what am I doing about it? He said, well, Mom, you're helping people. You're speaking about it and writing books about it. And I said, exactly. I said, do you think that maybe someday some young kid is going to come up to you and he's going to say, look, this is what happened to me. And you're going to be that person that's going to be able to help that young kid because you've been through it. And you're going to be able to say, this is what I did to persevere and overcome that situation. And he's like, oh, okay, I get it. And so I think perseverance is a big thing. I think, nowadays kids, they get anxiety and they don't know, like they just take everything personally and they just get so involved and so upset if somebody said something or done something to them. But what can they do to get through it? And I think that's what we have to teach our kids, is more coping mechanisms so they can get through these kind of situations.
Yes, you're so right. What allowed yourself to overcome the burns and the bullying and all that stuff? What helped you?
Well, I think a lot of it was that I'm a big dreamer. So, I remember being a kid and at the school recess and school lunches, I'd eat my lunch and then go outside and I would sit under the tree and I would just be dreaming about my life. So I find that a lot of people just spend so much time in the past. And I mean, if I looked at my past, I would never be where I am. And so I really encourage people, think about your present and your future. What do you want your life to look like? What can you control? What can you change? And so I know that that was a big thing for me, is that I was always thinking, what else can I do? Right? So, and eventually as an adult, you know, even if I get bullied now, and I don't get bullied now, but I mean, like, people still stare at me. And so there was a time when that would bother me, but now I realize that they're not staring at me and thinking I'm ugly. They're staring at me and thinking, oh my gosh, like, look how beautiful she is. And look how she, you know, puts herself out there, even though she's got scars all over her body, right? Or they might be thinking, what happened to her? You know, I'd really love to know what happened to her. And so that has really helped me to overcome the teasing and the bullying, is when I realized that it really doesn't matter what people think. I can't change it. Right? And we get so caught up in thinking that, you know, we have to know what people are thinking and they're constantly judging us. And a lot of time, people might look at us and think about us for about 3 or 4 seconds, and they're back to thinking about themselves, right? It's true, though. People spend way more time thinking about themselves than they do about other people. So, yeah.
Right, and then we have a 3-second interaction, and then we think about it for next decade.
Exactly. Yeah, we're back to thinking about our own problems and what we have to do, and Christmas shopping, and, you know, all those other things that we need to do. So people need to stop worrying about what everybody's thinking of them.
Yes, yes. We can't control that anyway. We can only control our thoughts, what we think about.
What we think about, exactly.
What are you passionate about? What brings you joy?
Well, you know, I'm really passionate about the TEDx talk that I did, and it's called Ugly is Still Beautiful. And that is actually an acronym. And what I'm excited about is that we're going to be putting on an event, and we're going to be teaching young girls and young adults about what ugly means. And ugly doesn't mean ugly. Ugly means the unique, gorgeous, lovable you is always beautiful. And so I'm really passionate about that, and passionate about getting back on stage and really helping people to love who they are and realize that you don't have to be perfect and you don't have to be flawless in order to be beautiful or in order to be loved. So that's what I'm really passionate about.
I
Yeah.
love that. What is the smallest thing you've done that had the biggest impact in your life so far?
Oh my goodness, the smallest thing I've done that had the biggest impact. Interesting. Well, it's interesting because we did the documentary about my life story. Oh no, you know what? This is what I'm going to say, the smallest. The smallest thing I did was I created a painting. And the painting is some flowers and roses and hearts on it. And I took that painting and I found a way to get it made into blankets. And the blanket says, you are loved, you're needed, you're wanted, with that painting. And so what I did is I took that blanket and found a way to, well, actually, I go to different Rotary clubs and I speak and I share my story of being a burn survivor. And then I ask people to sponsor blankets. And then we give those blankets to, at summer camp, we give them to the burn kids so that they know that they are loved, needed, and wanted. And so I think that's one of the biggest impacts that I've had, because it's also in my documentary. And yeah, it's been all over TV, and it's just been so cool to see, you know, people comment and contact me and say, you know, Kelly, I love your blanket. It's you know, I sleep with it every night and it makes me feel so warm and loved. So I love it. Yeah.
It's so beautiful. I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Is there anything exciting in your life that going on that you want to share? Any new events coming up? Any books you're writing that you'd like to share?
Well, one of my books is called Self-Esteem Doesn't Come in a Bottle. So I'm going to be doing a new one called Perseverance Doesn't Come in a Bottle. And yeah, and just the event that we're going to do, and I think we're going to do it in either March or April, and it's going to be the Ugly Conference. And so I'm going to speak, and then we're going to invite all these young girls to come and speak and talk about their ugly moment. and how they've persevered through all that, and just really have a real inspiring and motivational event to help people.
I love it. That's incredible. What do you think is your superpower?
Oh my goodness, you ask such incredible questions. I love it. One of my superpowers is that I'm an idea person. So a lot of times people will come to me and they're stuck. And all of a sudden, they'll just tell me what they're trying to accomplish. And then, I'm able to shift their mindset and shift the idea. So it's something that, that they're really inspired to do. And it's funny because they'll say, I never saw it like that. And then when I tell them, hey, have you thought of this? They just go crazy. And it's so fun watching people do that.
Well, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And so very needed, because oftentimes we do get stuck.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Amazing, amazing. If people would like to connect with you, where would they go?
So they can go to my website, which is kellyfalardeau.com, or they can go to 7stepsauthor.com. That's where I have a free, blueprint for your listeners. And that's where they can learn how to write and publish a book in 7 easy steps. So, yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
I would love to just share a quote that I came up with. It's when I wrote my very first book. And the quote is this: dreams are meant to be found, not tucked away in dreamland.
I love it. I love it, because I'm also about following dreams, because the richest place on earth is the cemetery. It's where all those ideas that go to die. Let's
I agree with
make
you.
a better world and not let those dreams die, because they're always waiting for us. It's we as adults who forget about them.
Exactly. So many people, they forget about their dreams and they don't do anything with them. And it's sad to see that they don't follow their dreams. So I want to encourage people, follow your dreams.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, your wisdom, your knowledge. It's incredible. I loved having you. Thank you.
You are very welcome. Thank you. You've been a fantastic host. I loved your questions.